Hi there, friends. My name is Vladimir Vasilyev. Welcome back to my channel. Today on Test Flight, we have Cessna, simply Cessna. And the reason I'm saying this is because this simple, wonderful, and fast plane is actually as simple as this one. So today, I'm going to tell you why. All right, let me introduce you to the Cessna Citation CJ2 that participates in today's test flight. And all of the time during the review, now and in the future, I'll call it simply Cessna. And believe me, that title is a huge compliment to that plane. Because with the experience of flying the Cessna and the way it operates, I can confidently say that its main advantage is not even speed, range, or altitude. No. The whole point is on its philosophy, which the company has been focusing on for many years. In the control of this plane, in the operation of this plane, in its equipment. And the philosophy is clearly visible, specifically in this model, and it continues to evolve in newer models of Cessna production.
Positive rate. Gear is coming up, the yaw damper is on. Just fly the heading, flight level change, and go it. Pull. 180 at speed. So.
The plane reaches 1 kilometer per minute, and this is despite that we're not trying to reach the maximum altitude. I mean, everything is very fast, and again, so smooth, and it is absolutely easy to control. The autopilot is now off, and you just hold the position of the plane on the flight director, and it's so easy. It is easily controllable, and I'll say it again, it is Cessna. Just Cessna, but in luxury packaging. The CJ2 is actually a factory-grade Cessna 525A, and it's an upgraded version of the Cessna 525, a shorter version of this aircraft. So what was changed? The same fuselage was used, though it was made longer, but the wings were slightly altered, and now the wingspan is larger. Additionally, there is a more powerful engine installed over here. The plane can now fly farther. It is way more comfortable than before. Overall, this is the generation of the 525 models that have replaced the Cessna 500 series that have been in production for decades. And now, a little bit about the technical characteristics. It is designed to carry up to 11 people, 2 crew members, and 9 passengers. And if we talk about this particular configuration, it involves 2 crew members, although this aircraft is allowed to be controlled by only 1 pilot, and it can accommodate 6 passengers comfortably. And if necessary, there's an additional seat. By the way, look what I got. This is what the key to the jet looks like. Really tiny. This aircraft obviously is equipped with an air stair. The doors opened and turned to the side. And also, the interesting thing, when the door is turned aside, it becomes fixed. So in order to close it, you need first to pull a special handle that is inside, and then the retainer is removed so you can close the door. Speaking of interior, inside the CJ2, it's quite spacious. Of course, you can't call it big, and you won't be able to stand here full height, since the height inside is only 4 feet 9 inches. You can only carefully pass and sit down. But once you've settled in, again, the plane allows you to move the seat in different directions to make your flight as comfortable as possible. And also, during long-haul flights, the back of the chair leans back, and you can easily take a nap, if you will. In my opinion, this is the most optimal version of the plane, with a configuration for 6 people in the cabin. 4 people are opposite each other, and there are 2 tables installed over here. And what I deeply respect is that they're pretty strong, because on other planes, sometimes you're afraid to put things on the table because they're not stable. But here, everything is very solidly made, nothing to add, because it's Cessna, simply Cessna. Look, the portholes here could be tightly curtained by the curtain system. You see, like that, if the light distracts you. Again, we see here individual cup holders, individual entertainment system as well, meaning that there's a small TV here, and you also can connect your headphones, listen to music if you want. And additionally, here we have connectors to charge your devices. Now, let's go to the back seats. Frankly, I would choose to sit there in front because it's more comfortable over there. But like I said, it's pretty good here because the seats could be moved like the front ones. And that's how to create more space around you. Here we have a small wardrobe. The plane, by the way, has a toilet, and even there you can find an emergency exit. As you might notice, a small kitchen is also included on the plane. I mean, there's a coffee machine over here, hot water is also available. Here we have a DVD player, also a small fridge for beverages, a few drawers for small stuff. This is a dumpster, and here's a holder for bottles of wine. And overall, there are all sorts of containers for dishes and other things. Frankly speaking, to get to the pilot's chair, you need to have a flexible body, but generally, here is really comfortable. There is enough space, given that my height is not that short. There's an armrest here, so if we're going to sum up the situation in the pilot's cockpit, everything's great. Does the pilot also have a cup holder? Sure. Look, each pilot has even 2 cup holders. What I also like about Cessna planes is the glazing, because it provides you a fantastic overview, and it is especially wonderful to admire the beauty of the world and to see how beautiful our land is while observing from inside the plane. And this huge glazing and the fact that the cockpit, basically like all jets, is forward and gives you an overview of about 270 degrees. All these things make you feel insanely happy. Well, this aircraft is equipped with the Collins Pro Line 21, also FMS, as 2 primary displays for both pilots. And basically, almost all the information necessary for the pilot to control the plane is entered here, namely the position in space, speed, height, and stuff. There's the course system as well. There are also 2 radio stations and the GPS navigator. Also here we can see the multifunction display. Here, at the moment, a course system and engine control system has been installed. Look, these are duplicate devices in case of engine failure. And at the moment, we have an always-on radar on the command display. It is also worth noting that the aircraft is equipped with a completely advanced autopilot. That means the entire flight of the aircraft might be activated at almost any time. The only thing is that CJ2 does not have a traction automation, so you'll keep watching the process and do corrections manually. The original philosophy of the plane was to transport passengers quickly and comfortably. And as a rule, when you get on planes like that one, you immediately want to take your place and enjoy your flight and the view from the window. This aircraft can be operated by the owners themselves, indeed, as it remains the same, simply Cessna. But keep in mind that you should have a rating on precisely the control of this plane. I mean, the citation. But there's one really cool thing. If you're comparing this plane to its competitors in the world of business aviation, well, the vast majority of pilots would definitely have a type rating on the CJ2, I'm sure. And they occupy the lion's share compared to the pilots of the other aircraft. So if you ever need a CJ2 pilot, you can easily find one. And overall, many owners of this model do not always have a regular partner pilot. They can take a co-pilot purely for some specific flight, and that's all. So again, to find the co-pilot, it's really not a big deal. Is there any reason why there's an axe sticking out of the back of your seat? Yep, the axe you see here, by the way, is an integral part of the plane, and it actually should be here. And as on many planes, you have an AX written into the equipment list. Why? Because if the plane made an emergency landing, let's say the plane made an emergency landing, the exit door jammed and people can't get out, well, then you have an AX to break the window and finally leave the plane. A little about the benefits of Citation. They got a very common network of aircraft services and the widespread network of professionals and pilots, as well as spare parts that are always available. Interestingly, when you buy an airplane, it involves a certain packages of services. And particularly, the Citation has a program for engines. What does it mean? It means that you pay the service center for every hour of the flight. For example, this plane is involved in an engine maintenance program which is called Elite. It is around $150 per engine per hour. But in this situation, the program covers literally everything. You will not maintain the engine yourself, as any repairs will be performed by the service for free. Overall, when it's time to repair or replace your engine, as the maintenance life of those engines is 5,000 hours, then it will cost you nothing. There's also a top parts program. It's similar to the previous one. You pay for every hour, and Cessna will supply you with all the parts for this plane for free. Therefore, whatever happens, or if some EAD is released, the plane in any case arrives at the service center and all the necessary spare parts will be provided free of charge. Somehow, it explains why planes that are a little older cost a lot of money. They are just often serviced. Hence, the airplanes, unfortunately, age more slowly than humans. The average flight speed of such an aircraft is about 430 miles per hour, and its range, to feel comfortable and stress-free, is about 2,000 kilometers, while having a fuel reserve on board. Of course, this number is not the limit, since the ferry range reached around 300 kilometers. And the opposite way, the range will naturally be shorter when the plane is fully filled with passengers. But still, it's true that this plane can perfectly safely deliver 4 to 6 people at an altitude of 43,000 feet to a distance well across Europe. And a frequently asked question, what is the fuel consumption? It's around 130 gallons of aviation kerosene on a cruise flight of the aircraft. The Cessna CJ2 started to be sold in 2000. It was released from 2000 until 2006, but then the manufacturer began to produce the CJ2 Plus version. What are some distinctions made between them? The main thing is the availability of the automatic engine control system. And this saved quite a bit of fuel, which is around 50 miles of extra distance compared to its predecessor CJ2. And now, friends, to all the above, look at the wings. The point is that they are almost not backward or forward from its route, which significantly affects the speed of the aircraft. And as I already said, it reaches 430 miles per hour. But the straight wing mainly made it possible to fly to shorter lanes. I mean, if your runway is 3,200 feet long, this plane can do its job easily. And even if you consider that plane for private use only, according to the rules, 2,900 feet is legal. But if you are planning a commercial use of the aircraft, then the requirements would be way more strict. And the starting long runway by rule is 4,000 feet. But again, this is not too long, and all thanks to the structure of the wings. On one hand, it's on straight, which creates a lot of lift. On the other hand, it has a pretty laminar flow, so it's fast. Interestingly, this plane is not only comfortable, but also friendly to the pilot. I mean, I don't call it simply Cessna for nothing, because these guys have managed to preserve this unique philosophy, which has been in this plane for decades now. And despite the fact that there is a big gap between these two in cost, purpose, and in operation, the Cessna company still managed to keep the specificity of their aircraft. The pilot should enjoy flying the plane. For example, on the approach, this aircraft has a glide scope of 105 knots. This is comparable to the speed that a twin-engine piston plane has when it does the glide scope. I mean, it's not as fast as the plane that can go over 400 knots and go up to a flight level of 450 feet. So now I want to focus on the chassis. That's trailing gear, or in other words, the so-called knee gear. These chassis can make any newbie pilot an ace, because thanks to the special design of the chassis, you'll land the plane smoothly. And pretty often, that's not actually the work of the pilots, rather of the designers of the gear. Well, basically, when you land in condition of a side wind, the plane is quite easy to manage. Speaking of the de-icing system, this plane has a combo of the anti-icing and de-icing system in one. The front edge of the wing and the inlet of the engine air intake are heated by extracting hot air from the engine, and thus the edges of the wings are heated, thus preventing the formation of ice on them. That was about the anti-icing system. That's awesome. Overall, it's incomparable. Yet, I mean, frankly, it is insanely beautiful because the sparkling metal and kind of vintage element on such a modern plane, it's just something. Wow. And there we see the classic empennage boots installed over the stabilizer that drop down the ice after it's formed over there. And that was the de-icing system. Next, if we are talking about the engines, well, the Citation is powered by two Williams FJ2C engines installed over here with the thrust of 2,400 pounds. And this engine has an excellent reputation, and a lot of its modifications are used in aviation nowadays. What can I say, friends? This engine, it's another long story, but briefly about my emotions. It has an amazing thrust, very fast implementation of this thrust and throttle response. Excellent work. And during the control, there's practically no delay when thrusting the lever forward. So that's why you took off vertically yesterday, right? Actually, no. Yesterday, it was just for fun, because when we flew this plane, and yesterday we had a test flight, we had a little bit of fuel and only 4 people on board, and that's why we were messing around. No, please, watch out. It costs 500 euros apiece. All right, let's reshoot this part. This plane is definitely for fun. And so this configuration of the plane yesterday easily picked up a speed of 4,000 feet per minute, an initial climb. And then it held perfectly steady speeds above 3,000 feet per minute up to a flight level 300. Well, I want to tell you that this plane is a for fun plane as well. However strange that may sound. Eventually, it's going to cost you a lot, but in return, you get amazing power, and the process of flying this bird is a daydream. I can't even find the right words, but you will 100% handle this plane. You'll tame it. There's an interesting feature of how to quickly distinguish the CJ2 model from the CJ2 Plus. As mentioned above, the CJ2 was manufactured since 2000 right up to 2006, with 238 units produced and nearly 230 in service. And that point actually emphasizes the reliability of this plane. But the next modification was the CJ2 Plus, the main feature of which is it is fitted with FADEC, the automatic engine control system. So how do you visually quickly find the difference between those models? Well, the CJ2 Plus has no thrust reverser, meaning that it's rather a semi-thrust reverser installed over here. It's not exactly the full-fledged thrust reverser that we're used to, and which is supposed to include a clamshell door system just as the CJ2 has. It's like a shell that closes and then the air flows. But still, there are brakes, and by closing these flaps during braking, still the direction of the airflow slightly changes, as the engine, even at low speed, creates a certain thrust. Look, we also have a baggage compartment backwards. It is, by the way, quite roomy. That is, for example, the back is designed for long items, such as skis or a snowboard. So the compartment is really roomy, as you can see. And here we have a battery bay as well. And usually, when the plane is in the parking lot, it is advisable to disconnect the battery. Let's move on. The wings are equipped with the standard Fowler flap and air brakes, and they are located on both sides, top and bottom. So this aircraft can easily descend at a speed of 5,000 to 6,000 feet per minute, which allows you to lose around 6,500 feet of altitude in 1 minute. But the plane starts to accelerate, and in order to somehow stop it, in this case, the air brakes are very helpful and they are extremely effective. By the way, it's noticeable that when an aircraft slows down, there is an immediate noise, but the effectiveness of the brakes is high. But sometimes you have to be careful using this feature, because when you release the brakes, you really feel a lot of braking. And some things inside the cabin, for example, can simply fall off the table. This is where the radar is, and this is static electricity dischargers. For example, if an airplane flies during rainfall or snow, this is where static electricity starts to form from friction. And so that it doesn't tip the radar, there are diverters for this. You can also see them all over the plane, on the wings, on the aileron, on the elevator, on the rudder, and on the wingtip devices as well. These are the standard parts of the plane it's equipped with. And on very many planes that fly at high speeds, also set static discharger on the nose cone. Now, we have entered the data about the approach, our pattern, and a second GPS navigator installed over there. It's Garmin 400. Yeah, not that new, but it's okay, quite suitable as a second navigator. Essentially, the philosophy of all business jets is to comfortably deliver passengers. Overall, in many planes, you kind of feel like you're, let's say, just a regular chauffeur for passengers. And this has its charm, though. But in CJ, I'll repeat, these guys here kept this bombshell philosophy that it's simply Cessna. You can't help having fun flying it. And yes, the plane is very easy and enjoyable to fly. Of course, this model is primarily designed for autopilot flight, and the plane will do almost everything on its own instead of you. But listen, it's so cool to control by hand. There's a reason that we are filming two different Cessna models today. Both aircraft reflect the philosophy of simply Cessna. And I'll repeat for the 1,000th time for today that simply Cessna aren't just silly words, but a giant compliment and a low bow to these planes. It is a small machine that allows you to quietly break away from the ground and enjoy the beauty of the surrounding world while mentally feeling like you're inside of a cocoon. And it is true that being on the flight inside the Cessna 150 makes you feel really safe. It gives you an outstanding feeling of security. I'm totally obsessed with this one, and he will forgive all of your mistakes. And going back to CJ2 Plus, it looks nothing like 150 externally, but in fact, it's still the same Cessna 150, still easy to operate. Comparing to other aircraft in the aviation world, Cessna is not that expensive to maintain. Though if you look at the cost figures, they are quite high. Nothing to add. It's simply Cessna. Today was a wonderful day. I flew a great plane. I got a lot of fun and joy. But first of all, I'm talking about very aesthetic pleasure. Every time I fly on Citation, I experience great pleasure from literally every single thing. From the beauty of the flying, from the power of this plane. It's a graceful rocket. I'm not afraid of these words. It can really fly like a rocket. My friends, come to the sky, fly such wonderful planes that we fly. My name is Vladimir Vasilyev, Thanks so much for watching, and see you in the next video.